Welcome to Boss Hog Torque Converters. I'm Nelson. We're a manufacturer of high-performance torque converters. We make them for all kinds of different setups, all throughout a very large range. But today we're here to talk to you about the torque converter and how it works. And we want to explain to you all of the individual components and how they work together to get a specific output. We're going to disband any of this voodoo science and misinformation that's out there so that you can understand and better match a stall to your particular setup. So what I want to talk to you about is the torque converter. But let's start off with what's known as the pump side of the torque converter. Now normally this would actually be welded up around here, and this is where you would actually mount it to the flex plate, okay? So now this is a special display that actually comes apart so we can actually see how these pieces go together and what they are. So let's be clear on what we're talking about. This is also called a snout, okay? The name of this is an impeller hub. This is what slides into the transmission and engages the front pump gear that actually does the work for pumping the fluid into the torque converter and throughout the transmission. So this top portion here, all of this right here is known as the pump or impeller of the torque converter, okay? So this is actually going to pump fluid using the same centrifugal force as your crankshaft, because this being welded together is actually attached to the crankshaft because it's one solid piece, whereas the other stuff stands still or gets its energy from the fluid itself, okay? So this is going to be turning as it is engaged along with the engine and spinning in its proper direction, be pumping fluid to the outside of this impeller, and it was going to go back into the outside of the turbine. So this right here is the turbine. This right here on the back of it is the turbine hub. Now, something we missed, but it's the same as on the impeller, these right here are individual vanes. That's what they're called. This is also the turbine splines right in here, so that we can all talk on the same page. Now, this actually sits down into what's known as the front cover. Now, this is going to be bolted to the flex plate towards the front of the car, and that's why they would call that. We here at ACC Performance call it the bottom of the torque converter because we stack them out in this particular direction as well. Then the next piece that comes up will be our actual stator here. So this stator is surrounded by Torrington style bearings. They're encased. They're very durable. They take a lot of RPM and a lot of abuse. And they set in there in a specific way. The stator, however, has to go in a specific direction to capture the fluid as the fluid is being pumped through the torque converter. So now we're talking about the turbine. Now the turbine, as it accepts the fluid coming through the outside, sometimes this is actually traveling in reverse, okay? So as the fluid comes in, it actually has to change directions, come up through the vanes of the turbine, and then it's going to capture this side of the stator in the center of this. So as it catches the stator, it has to have enough pressure to actually lock up the stator's sprag inside. Now, this sprag is a one-way clutch that will lock and engage and begin to apply back pressure on the inner fins. So once you meet that pressure and it begins to apply back pressure on the fins, this starts to neutral out and then begins to change direction as you begin to get positive torque multiplication. Now, once you have enough RPM, you have continuous fluid flow coming in here, with this giving it enough back pressure to then overcome the rest of the body and how the motor breathes, giving you the actual beginning of takeoff. So what does stall mean? Well, let me explain something to you, that this torque converter here is for the automatic, as the clutch is for the stick shift. So this is a liquid coupling. So inside of it, with the different vanes and different pitches of the fins and the stator, can allow it to slip while the car comes to a stop. So that slip gives you that disengagement. Unlike if you were to try to come up to a stop sign with a stick shift and you left it in gear without depressing the clutch, the engine would just go dead. So what actually affects the stall? Well, the bigger the intake runner can change the stall. The better breathing heads can change the stall. Even an exhaust system can change the stall in a torque converter. So stall ranges are not fixed and are variable depending upon how you build your car, the weight of the vehicle, and your gear ratio. Let me give you an example. If we were to take a full-size half-ton pickup truck that is four-wheel drive, you could depress the brake and give it gas, holding the brake at the same time, and you should probably see 2,000, maybe 2,300 RPM. But if you throw it down into four-wheel drive low, now you're going through the transfer case that's in essence going to more than double that gear ratio. Then put it in gear and you're going to notice that the drop of the stall, it's going to be right there. It could take off the second you leave your foot off the brake. There's no stall in it whatsoever. So in essence, just by giving it more gear ratio with no engine modifications, no exhaust modifications, no cold air, nothing, just bone stock, has changed the stall by 1,400 RPM with that particular application. That makes stall variable. So as many as 7,300 variables for every single setup. We want you to get it right. We know that this is a science that a lot of people don't understand, and it's even been called voodoo science. Well, here we've actually got it down. Go to bosshogtorqueconverters.com. That's bosshogtorqueconverters.com. Go down to tech support and you'll see that we have a step-by-step form that you can fill out, and we'll get right back to you as soon as we can with the right part number for your particular application, and better yet, how you want to drive the vehicle for your setup. Be sure to like this video and hit subscribe. Thank you for watching. And by the way, check out all of our social medias below.